Hey guys, it's Wendy here with Wendy's Plans, and today it's time to update the reading notebook. So, guys, stick around. Alrighty, guys, so I need to update the books that I have read in January. I think I got up to the end of December, first part of January in the last time we were together. And today I need to finish out January. January kind of got away from me because there was a lot of things going on. So I wanted to go ahead and bring it to you today. So I have pop-ups popping up again. Guys, I get them off and then they pop back up again. But anyway, I am going to start this time with the books that I have listened to on Audible. So we're going to start with these. I've put them in order because that is the way that I have been reading these, is in reading order. And these are the Patricia Cornwell, which is the Dr. K. Scarpetta books. And I'm really enjoying them. And I think the reason that I am enjoying them this time is because, number one, I'm older. When I read them to be the first time, I was probably mid-20s to my maybe early 30s. I don't even know if I was 30 yet. But anyway, I had started reading her books. I enjoyed them so much. My mom started reading them. And her reasoning was she used to like the show Quincy. And that was a show about a medical examiner. And she loved that. And so I was telling her, I was like, well, these kind of remind me of that because, he's doing the same thing. And so she got into them and she read them, the series also. So it was one of the few books that we actually liked together. There was two other authors that we liked that were the same too. But this one was the first one that kind of, I don't know, brought us together on our reading stuff. So these are the ones that I have listened to. All That Remains, Cruel and Unusual, Body Farm, From Potter's Field, Cause of Death, and Unnatural Exposure. Now, I'm putting this one in here because I've got a little over an hour left of this book. I'll finish it tonight. So, or today sometime hopefully when I'm out walking on the beach. So, with that being said, it's time to get into the books that I am physically reading on my Kindle. So these are all spicy romance, guys. Not romance. They're kind of thriller, I guess is what they are. So the first one is Maximus by Riley Edwards, and this is just a continuation of the books that I was reading because, guys, this is the thing about me. When I get on to somebody that writes and they have series of books, I have to read them all. That's just me. So it's Maximus Declan. I'm not putting these in specific order because, there you go. Then there was the Blue Team. So, like I said, I'm not putting these in the order in which they were supposed to be, but just to get them in here. So these again are Navy SEALs. I think Cooper was not a Navy SEAL. Some of them were Army. But they're military. Mostly Navy SEAL, but some are other military branches. And, they're righting wrongs. And they're good, but they are spicy. I've kind of, I think as the series went, it wasn't quite as much as the very beginning, but they're interesting. They are something to keep my mind busy. Let's just put it that way. So I have Garrett, Owen, Gabe, Cooper, Kevin, and Miles. Then she had the next series, or sequence, which carried the same people. They're just different teams, like SEAL Team Red, Blue. Same thing here. It's red, gold, blue, and then silver. This was the last one in this particular group of people. There will be more because there's 5 people in this team. They're just not out yet. And then Playing with Lies popped up, which was another of her books. It's still a series. So I read that one. So let's see. We had Garrett, Owen, Gabe, Cooper, Kevin, Miles, then Theo. He was the last one that I have found so far. Playing with Lies was the next one that I read, and then Dangerous Love. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, Wendy, how did you pack and get out of your apartment if you've read all these books? Well, I will tell you. Some of these books were a little shorter than some. I want to go back and number them. So let's go. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Okay, so now let's go back. The Patricia Cornwell, I keep saying Cornwell, Patricia Cornwell books. Those I have been listening to on Audible. So as I packed, as I was doing things to get ready to move, then I would listen to Audible. So that is how I got through as many of her books as I did. Now, the Raleigh Edwards books averaged reading time. I don't know pages because I'm doing it in Kindle. They give you a pages, but I don't know if that's a true page count because I put my font bigger and, I don't know. I don't know how it figures the page size. So I go by hours. So some of these books were 8-9 hours, which is an average book. And then some of them were 6 hours. Now, that to me would say it's a smaller book. I guess if you were reading like a Harlequin romance book or some of the cozy mystery books, it's about the same size as those books. So, really, an amount, the total amount of these, I have 8-9 books. It was probably maybe 6 true books, if that makes any sense. Now, when I would lay down to rest my back, I would read for 20 minutes. I would get up and I would do more on my apartment. So all of those 20 minutes I laid down, I read. And when I was up working, I listened to my book on Audible. And then when I would go to bed, because I was so wore out, some nights I just struggled to get to sleep. To be honest, I just couldn't get to sleep. And so I would read. The other thing was I was spending time at Christopher and Emma's apartment. I was staying with my friend Renee. Um, there were several times I was at Renee's apartment by myself, and those I took advantage of the quiet. And when I would go down 6 or 7 o'clock, I would just read. So that's how I got through so many books this month. Am I going to do that every month? Probably not. I've got too much going on right now as far as things I want to accomplish and do, that my time is going to be spent outside of my house and doing things. So I would probably end up listening to more books on Audible and then at night read. So it's going to kind of fluctuate back and forth, which is I'm doing more. So there we go. Now, I know last time I said, and I listed all the books, and wrote a little synopsis. I'm not going to do that because that gets kind of long and drawn out. But what I am going to do is put how I read them. Um, because when I'm once I'm done, I've got another video I need to film, and then I will sit down and I will do the little synopsis. But I don't want to. I don't want to sit here and take up a lot of your time with me writing. I will go over a little brief synopsis um, until I get to the Riley Edwards. I'm going to group those together because I've read all of them and I can't go back and tell you the exact scenario of each one. Um, I might be able to. Okay, let's see how far I can get. And I think what I am going to do, because I want to make sure I'm telling you guys right, I am going to, okay. So all that remains. This book, again, she is a medical examiner, and she's the chief medical examiner, meaning she's over all the medical examiners in the state of Virginia. And so her job is to do autopsies and to help determine cause of death and to help the investigators investigate how this person was killed if they're under suspicious reasons. So this book starts, and it's a serial killer that has been killing people for a while, and they're always lovers or in a situation that would preclude that they were lovers. Um, and they're in their car, and somehow the person that kills them gets them out of their car and kills them and leaves them hidden. And then later, hunters or hikers or someone comes across the bodies, and they're always in the same position. They're always the same way, but they're always in a situation where they have um, their bodies have become skeletalized. It's the best way to put it. And so she's investigating those. Cruel and unusual. Okay. This one was really weird. It was really good. So it starts out with a prisoner being executed. He had committed a murder several years before, and it was a horrendous murder the way it took place. And she's called to the morgue to take possession of the body once they were executed or put to death. And she has finished that case. Things happen, and test results disappear, fingerprints disappear. There's all these things behind the scenes, and you're like, what's going on? And so then they have another murder come in, and it's an odd murder that they could tie back to the original murder of the person who has just been executed. So their wheels are going. Did we just put to death a prisoner who did not commit these crimes, which they had enough evidence to know that the person they had who was in jail was the person. So then her morgue assistant is murdered, and then other people, and then they find fingerprints at one of the scenes that match the person who has just been executed. So it's all twisted and turned, and it's intriguing, and it is so very good. This one to me had, if you don't like to read books that give you a lot of medical information, then you're not going to want to read Cruel and Unusual. It was really good, but it had a lot of that information in it. The Body Farm. So the Body Farm starts with her assisting the FBI in a case in the mountains of North Carolina. And the way that she has to get information to be able to figure out how these deaths occurred, because it just wasn't adding up. Um, Bodies that were not exposed, or the length of time they were exposed to the elements, wasn't showing the decay that they should have. Things just weren't adding up. And so she contacted a person that is a professor, and they own what is called the Body Farm. And so, with people that leave their bodies to science, um, sometimes these bodies are donated to help police departments and things try to determine where these people were. So they simulate the same scenarios, if that makes sense. They have bodies that they have put out in nature to see, that they watch and follow, that's been out there for years, so they know the point of decay for each year. So it's a teaching kind of thing, but it's called the Body Farm. So she's working with them. She's working with the FBI, and to solve these murders. Now we have from Potter's Field, and I think this goes back to one of her earlier books. It does, because it goes back to Cruel and Unusual. So there's a character in Cruel and Unusual that is going to be brought back in from Potter's Field. And Potter's Field, I'm trying to get my thoughts together how to talk about this, is when a body is autopsied in New York and they're homeless, or they can't identify them, nobody claims the bodies. They are buried in Potter's Field, which is an island off of New York. Now, I don't know if that part's true or not, but that, for this book, is what it was called. And so the character that comes from this book, Cruel and Unusual, is rearing their ugly head again in this book. And they know by the murder that he is who it is, but they don't know who this person is that was murdered. And so in that journey, it exposes, I don't want to give you too much information, and there's no way to explain some of this without giving it to you. I'm just going to say there are family dynamics that are going to rear their head in this book pertaining to the murderer and the victim. And guys, it's a really good book. I don't know what else to say to not give everything away. Cause of Death. Cause of Death was a book that I didn't remember at all. Bits and pieces of these came back. Cause of Death, I couldn't remember anything about it. It's New Year's Eve. She's filling in for her, one of her other medical doctors, or medical examiners, on Virginia Beach area. Tidewater, it's called the Tidewater area. And so he is out diving, he dies. So she has to go, she has to dive, she has to retrieve the body, bring it up, and then do the autopsy. And things just happen one after another, and trying to figure out what happened and to prove what happened. Um, and there's a cult involved. It's just really on the edge. You have to remember this book was written in 19 1980. Let me see. Cause of death. Let's see. This book was released in 1996. So for 1996, this was like um, very, the technology and stuff. You start seeing things like robotics and things like that. So this one was a very intriguing book, and it was really good. A Natural Exposure. This is the one that I could vividly remember, and it's a murder that's being committed. It's also spreads the globe. It's from Dublin to now the United States, and a small island off of Virginia, and they're isolated people, and it's smallpox. And so this one is very, very good. And this is one that stuck with me for a lot of years because I worked in healthcare. And for me, the thought that we pretty much had eradicated smallpox, we didn't keep a huge amount of vaccine for it. So it was very interesting, and it just kept my attention. So now let's go to the Riley Edwards. I'm going to pull those up because, like I said, there was a lot of those books. Um, and if I know the characters, I can tell you the story. Um, okay. So Max was a former Navy SEAL, and they have a person that works for their group that does all their research, and he can uncover anything and everything, and he can get you what you need. He's cyber everything. He's really good. And so he had helped this woman before who did things that were not right, but she did them to protect her child and to save her child. And um, one of those things was she was a bush pilot in Alaska, and she dropped off two people in the middle of a forest in the snow with no supplies or anything because she was told that's what she had to do in order to save her child. And so she did it. But she did it knowing that they had a former Navy SEAL who could get himself out of the situation, and his at that time girlfriend. And so for Max, he had an issue with that because you just don't do that. But he is sent to Florida to get her and her son to bring them back to Annapolis to provide protection for them because somebody has put a hit out for her. And so their story begins with him protecting her and his son. And needless to say, they fall in love, and he loves the child. And that's pretty much the story. Declan. Um, Declan, I struggled with because I need to look back. Was it Olivia? I think it was protecting Olivia in the first book. They are protecting a lady who works for the CIA, and they don't like working with the CIA in their team. They do a lot of government jobs. They go in and rescue people. They help with human trafficking and all of that. But they don't like to work for the CIA. And so this particular person falls in love with one of their members. They get married. Well, growing up, she was a twin, and they were separated when they were 3 years old, and their parents were killed in a car wreck. And so she was adopted immediately, and he was not. He went through the system. He was eventually adopted, but they were so young that the memories for her went away. For him, they didn't, because all he wanted was to protect her. So fast forward it to when they are protecting her. The reason she did the things that they didn't like was that part of her job was to, when new recruits were brought into the CIA, she researched and did all the background to make sure they were on the up and up. And she realizes that this is her twin brother. And so it brings back the memories that she was a twin, and she has not seen him. They're now 30. And so they're in an interview. He does not recognize her. And so he gets hired with the CIA. He goes about his merry business doing his stuff. And he does not tell her because he doesn't want to disrupt her life, because she had a very good life with a good family. And he doesn't want her to have hard feelings that he didn't. So he kind of puts on this brave face and doesn't tell her. Well, in the end of that book, they meet up and they realize who they are. I'm not giving away anything to that story. Now, move forward. He doesn't have relationships. He doesn't feel worthy of those things. Now, to make it even more complicated, one of the characters in this book has a sister that they were protecting, and I've got to tell you which one that was. Some of these books are intertwined. I I don't remember which one she was married to, but they were helping her because she she was their way of going in and getting someone who was a very bad person, and they were doing things that were wrong. And the reason she was doing the things that she was doing, she was killing these, pretty much going in and building a rapport with these men who were doing the trafficking and the animal fighting, the dog fights, the cock fights, all of that. So she was out there killing them to find her sister, who had been sold human trafficking. And so she was looking for her, and that brought her forward to Declan. And so Declan and her forge a relationship. And it's a very difficult relationship for both of them. And so they end up working together to finish out that ring. So it kind of keeps moving forward through some of the books, and they fall in love. That's pretty much that book. It was really good. it's very mature book. I should say that. It's the topics are just heartbreaking. Garrett. Garrett is the person that sits in the office. He works, he helps with the cyber stuff and does all the computer, that kind of stuff. And Garrett worked with the Navy SEAL. No, I don't know if he was Army or Navy. I don't remember. But he went in to help rescue somebody that was publicly executed that had been held hostage, an American soldier. And so he felt guilty because of the information that was provided to him was incorrect, but he still felt the guilt behind it. And so he had a fiance and he went off the rails. He broke up with his fiance. It was a whole bunch of stuff. Now he's gone back because his dad's real sick and he has to go home, and he's re-centered into the fiance's life. And things happen. They build on their love, and his fiance's sister was murdered, and it was a bad situation, and they were trying to take her nephew, and so he was helping her and her family, and they fall back in love again. So Owen, I'm struggling with Owen. I need to just look at this for a moment. Okay, so Owen has, it ties back to another book. Owen was in Alaska when the I don't remember. Maximus. So back to Maximus, she was a character that popped up in that book that was being sold to another person, and they captured her when they saw the other book. And so she's not talking. She talks a little bit, not much. She's not forthcoming with information. And he's been working with her for a while. And then things start to happen. And he's falling for her. And they know at this point they need to get her away from the house because things have happened. And they go to the mountains. I don't remember what state. I want to say Iowa. Not sure. Because bottom line was her father was the head of a gang. He was mafia in Chicago, and he was killed. She had to live with her uncle, and her uncle was trying to kill her. So they were trying to protect her, to bring down the mafia, to protect her, and to figure out what all was going on. And so they fall in love. All of these, they fall in love, guys. I'm just gonna say they all do. Gabe. So Gabe was a former Navy SEAL, and he ends up providing protection to um, her name's Yvette, and the whole thing is she was presumed dead in another country. She was there with Greenpeace, maybe. Anyway, she was there providing health and Peace Corps. And she was helping, they were help her and some friends were working together through the Peace Corps, and they were helping this orphanage that was being overrun by um, I don't remember what they were called, but anyway, their village was being overtaken. And so she is killed and left in a mass grave. Well, all of a sudden, she shows back up, and her friend, who is a reporter, can't drop it, can't leave it alone. And in her digging, brings her to Z Corp because she knows they're after her. And so he is providing the security for her. And so they have to go through this ordeal. They have to go back to the country where they had been, her friends had been kidnapped from. It's just a long um, way to get to the end of figuring out what went wrong, why she was still alive, and what all happened. So that one was a very interesting book. Cooper is another book that Cooper's brother is already with this group. His brother was a Navy SEAL, and his brother was a Navy SEAL and was already in Z Corp, and Cooper was a SWAT. He was on the SWAT team. I don't remember his rank, but he ended up, because of things going on that he didn't like, and he didn't feel like a rescue attempt was done, and the whole family was killed, and he was very upset over it. Ended up leaving the SWAT team. They hired him with Z Corp. Then I'm trying to remember. This book came before, so these books are going to tie in. Kira is a girl who does research for a team called Pantheon, I think was their name. And it was another group similar to Z Corp, but they were funded by the government, and they were trying to find information. For 10 years, they'd been working on one case, and it was, they knew it was government cover up, kind of, and they were working to bring all their people back in and to expose it, and things happened. And Kira is the person who did all of that research. And so Cooper they've become really good friends. They, move forward in that relationship. Both of them bring baggage with them, and they're working through that, and things happen along the way that's related to the rescue of Kevin's situation. So Kevin they're called to the president's office because there's a government contractor there who has information and needs help. And they need help because their person, who is Theo, is not responding, and they can't get in touch, but they knew where his last spot was, and he's like the link that will bust open the scandal and bring everything to light. And so they are pretty much forced to work with her to bring everybody in. And Kevin falls for her. It's a lot more than that, but I'm not going to. It's just too much. So, okay, so Miles is a um, former Delta operator. I think that's Army, Marines. I don't remember. And he has been sent to find an intel specialist, Delilah Watts. Um, and she is blowing the whistle on. So Miles has gone in search of someone. They're not sure where she's at as far as the crime that has happened. So they're looking for a person that is involved in another book and another crime. And she kind of disappears. She was a witness with, I think it was with Kira. I'm not sure. Um, but she just disappears. And they are looking for her. And so he has been tracking her from California through Mexico. He finally finds her. And the person that has kidnapped her has turned her loose and given them information where she's at to so they're able to protect her. Now, this they are they keep being followed. They're trying to along the way they finally figure out what's going on. But he has to bring her in. And along the way, he finds out that she was, in fact, trying to help and assist Kira in the information that was sent to her. And they fall in love. And there we go. Theo. Theo was tied in with this group because for 10 years he was the one who had been out in the Middle East trying to get information to bust a scandal wide open. And he is the one that falls off the everything. They can't find him anything. So they rescued Theo. He came back. So one of his first duties with Z Corp is to protect this girl who is under witness protection. So he is protecting her. She goes to trial and she's put in witness protection. He's already fallen in love with her because he had spent months and months and months with her. And all of a sudden she shows back up because somebody found her in witness protection and she ran. So she ran to him. So now it's their job to figure out how they found her, what happened, and to keep her safe so that nobody kills her. Playing with lies. Guys, this one I know because I just read this one. Playing with lies. He is a police officer in Georgia, and it's not a small town, but it's not a large town. It's kind of a medium-sized town. And he's been burned by his first wife. They had dated through high school, had gotten married, been divorced for over 10 years. He's a confirmed bachelor. He's never going to meet anybody. He's never going to fall in love and blah, 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 the whole thing. And a friend of a friend, she comes to him and says, somebody's following me. And so his protective instincts kicks in and he's protecting her. And a lot of things transpire. And it goes back to a friend of the family and her sister, who, unbeknownst to anybody, has a child out of wedlock. She had been sent to it was called a camp, and it was for teens that were misbehaving, and she had gone out there and spent 7 months. Well, what the parents didn't know was when they sent her out there, she was pregnant. She delivered a baby. She put it up for adoption. She was forced to put it up for adoption. And when she came home, they were none the wiser. And he finds out she's his mom, and he comes to town, and that's who is following the girl that he was protecting. So that one was really good. It's got a lot of twists and turns to it, but it was really good. Now, all of these books, let me preface with saying they're spicy. This is the one that I'm reading now. I have not finished it, but he met a girl. They had a one night stand. They both walked away thinking there was more to it than what there should have been. They had fallen for each other. 5 years goes by. He is on a team called Take Back, who goes back and finds people that have been human trafficking, that kind of stuff, and it gets the people back to their homes. And so when he's there, he hears her voice, he turns around, he sees her, and that's where I'm at, is them working through that and trying to figure out the ring they just busted. They know something's off about it, and now they're trying to figure out all of that. So guys, that's it. I will have a book review for you coming up on Identity by Nora Roberts. It's a great book. I will sit down and talk to you again about some books. They will be spaced out a little bit, but guys, I can't wait to go in depth with that book and talk about the narrator and all of that, because it was a wonderful book. So guys, I know this was a long one. I was hoping it wouldn't be, but until next time, guys, bye-bye.